In this lesson, we will create the first sketch with several characters for your illustration. Now, when we have enough research in our sketchbooks and ideas in our heads, let's create a final illustration. For start sketching, I will need a simple pencil, the eraser, and my sketchbook. I encourage you to have your sketchbook and maybe some of the exercise in front of you, because there you can find interesting characters for your composition. Let me find characters that I want to use for my final project. For instance, I like this woman I sketched in a cafe because of her very interesting triangle shape and her long neck. I also like this woman that I sketched because she had this very strange puffy triangle shape coat, and I even resketched her with a little bit of tweak, and I want to use her for my final illustration. So you can choose your characters, think of what characters represents your community best, or maybe your city, or maybe just people that got your attention and you want to include them in your final illustration. The other day I sketched this man with a huge shoulders and very interesting face, so I want to include him in my final project as well. He quite represents a community of my city. Let's start with create a powerful composition. I will start with creating very simple sketch, just a thumbnail to decide the composition. And I will start with creating the format I want to use. I want to use a vertical format, like a poster. So the composition is probably the most important part of your drawing, because the visual communication and the ideas you want to communicate, they start with creating compositions that will support them. You can communicate ideas and feelings without characters, without any specific objects. Just with the abstract composition, you can communicate anger or calm. You can communicate movement, dynamics, or some stability. So it's very important to think about how you will arrange your elements on your illustration. What hierarchy you will present, what will be the main things, and what will be the supporting things. For example, in this image, the composition is the main part to represent the idea and the conflict between the main character, who actually has no color, and the background with the colors, and this composition and this triangle shape that pointing at him makes it very visible that he is the main character and there is some conflict between him and the background characters. And the colors, they are supporting the composition. So I think the composition is a main part in my drawings. So let's now create a powerful composition for our final project. When you work on a composition, you should decide whether you will be working with the contrasts or with the nuances. When you work with the contrast, you have a big difference between different objects, like the size. You can have something very big and something very small. And when you work with the nuances, the difference is not that big. I like to create contrast compositions, and I like to use contrast colors. It's just my preference. You can use whatever you want. You can create more subtle compositions based on the nuances. Be aware of the story you want to tell and choose a composition that will work best for it. Kyiv is quite a city of contrasts, so I will use a contrast composition. I also think that I might want to have several layers in my composition because it will be the illustration of the city, and I want to have some characters in a foreground and other characters in a background. I want to show a city street, and in my opinion, for creating illustration about city street, it will be more convincing to show some space and distance between the characters. So let's start drawing our very simple sketch, a thumbnail. I will start with a just these simple geometrical shapes to decide the overall composition. I will start with this rectangular shape here. Maybe like this, maybe bigger. Maybe it will be this character with a big shoulders. The head somewhere here, so that's enough for now. Maybe smaller. Maybe I will add some group of characters. So this one will be some group of characters on a foreground and the group of characters on the background. Maybe some triangle character, like that woman from the sketch. Some circle-shaped, maybe like a woman from the sketch, this one, with this big coat. Maybe some other character here. I don't know, I can decide later. I can redraw here if I don't like it. So maybe I will put some smaller character here and some tall here. Maybe I want the group to look like some shape here. And I want to add the dog here. Maybe it's a dog from this character. Also, I have some space here, maybe something will go here. Now I have decided the overall composition. I think I need to move this part lower to make it more balanced, because it's not balanced. So I will move it. With the composition, it can be challenging at first, but the more you practice and the more you see nice compositions, the better you will get. So at some point you will feel where the composition is off and you want to change it. So just practice and go to museum, look at good artists and you will get it. So I want the composition to be more balanced, so I will move the line lower and maybe 1/3. If you struggle with creating composition, you can start with using rule of thirds. Then when you get used to it, you can break it and see what's happening. Okay, I'm happy with this thumbnail. Let's move on and make a more precise sketch. So now I will develop my sketch and make it more clear and think of the characters, how I want them to look. I also will start with creating the frame, the artboard, because the format is the first thing you work in a composition. If you don't know your format, you won't be able to create powerful composition. I created the rectangular format for this one as in a thumbnail. Then I will put some line that will be my ground for background characters here. Maybe somewhere here. I can work on it later if I want to move it. Now let's start drawing the characters. I will start with this big character on a foreground. I will use a rectangular shape to show that he's a tough guy. Because remember, we were talking about synesthesia and that shapes can bring emotions and represent personalities. So think of it. If you will use softer shapes, your characters might have more soft personality and they might seem more friendly. And if you will use sharper shapes, they can represent more powerful characters or more edgy characters. I want this character to feel strong. That's why I want to use a rectangular shape here. So the head will be somewhere here. I will draw it in kind of rectangular shape too. I will soften the shoulder a little bit because I want him to look just like a robot. Maybe he's wearing glasses. Maybe he has this sport jacket and the hat. This is a character from my city. You can see a lot of these guys. Next, I will think of other characters. So I want this lady to be here with her puffed coat. So I maybe draw her somewhere here. Okay, I will work on this a little bit more and I will show you the result. Now I have a sketch that I think we can work with. Let me share with you some tips. First of all, let's talk about the rhythm in a composition. So when we're talking about the rhythm, we're talking about the repetition of some kind. The repetition of shapes is a key for this composition. Look at these triangles. And these ovals and circles. Try to think what you can repeat to create rhythm in your sketch. The other thing that you might consider to make your composition more interesting is the rule of 3. I love this rule, it helped me a lot. So what is the rule of the 3? You want to have 3 kinds of objects in your composition. The big one, the medium one, and the small ones. The big ones is these big shapes. The medium is some medium shapes. And the small one will be some details and lines, like I will have lines here and there, the glasses, maybe some face features, so I will think of making small details there and there to have different sizes. So when you're creating this sketch, make sure that your characters are diverse, that they have different body shapes, that they represent different personalities of your community. So now when we have a first sketch for our final project, let's add lettering and fine-tune the sketch.